practically middle-aged.
The sheriff calls us outlaws.
Eyo! Adam's just told me that he now only wants to watch AEW from now on. And all WWE is dead. He's cancelled his network, and he's putting money into Impact Wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to episode 20 of the Middle-Aged Outlaws podcast. Today we're veering off course from our 1998 journey, and we are taking in our first ever AEW pay-per-view. We're taking in AEW All Out 2021, which just happened on Sunday night, and I am still recovering. Adam, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I mean, I haven't thrown off my sleep pattern quite as much as, my co-host, but yeah, good, yeah.
Excellent. How many times have you just watched it once?
I've just watched it once, straight through. I took, I think, one pause at a point, but yeah.
That's impressive. 4 hour
This is going to be fun,
pay-per-view.
I had no idea when I started it that it was going to be as long as that. I don't know why, I just thought it'll be a couple of hours or something like that. I was quite surprised when I saw the time, but it didn't necessarily feel like it took that long, so that's a good sign.
I agreed. I was looking over the length of time of each match. They're really well paced, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but I think the longest match was the Jericho MJF match, which was like 21 minutes.
Yeah.
Which surprised me, especially that the tag match felt like it was maybe on for like 45 minutes, and it was like just over 20 minutes. But
Yeah.
Should we just go for it? Should we go right in? There's no need for go home shows or anything like that. We've just done the pay-per-view. So let's go for it. Certainly your very sort of first exposure to watching an AEW show, wasn't it?
Yes. I think I'd seen the clip of CM Punk appearing. But it's the first show I've actually sat down and watched.
And from my point, I've dipped in and out of episodes of Dynamite. I've been watching Rampage since it started. It's only had 3 episodes so far, but I really like the 1 hour format, sort of quick in and out, get some really good matches and storyline stuff, and that's it. And I don't want to make this a bashing WWE episode at all. But when you hear Nick Khan, that interview he had, I think it was the one with Ariel Helwani, and he said he would like Raw to be 4 hours.
Wow.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start. We have got our commentary team of Excalibur, JR and Tony Schiavone. What did you think of them just generally throughout the night?
It's quite a funny team because you know the voice of JR so well, and I know the voice of Tony Schiavone pretty well. Excalibur was brand new to me. I actually think he's really good. Mm-hmm. I was impressed. I don't know what the story is behind him wearing a mask and all that, and I don't know really anything about him. But I thought just from a calling the action point of view, I was impressed. I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, me too. I think he's really good. I think when you show him on camera, he looks a bit funny.
Yeah.
But I don't know the story behind the mask either. But it's an odd combination, like you say. You've almost got 3 play-by-play and no colour. And then on other matches, you've got Mark Henry and you've got Jericho on Rampage. You've got them doing colour, so they've got an interest. They've got quite a lot of different sort of talents, but this worked for me perfectly for the pay-per-view. Schiavone's great every now and then. It's like JR and Schiavone are like 2 old mates watching the wrestling, and every now and again Excalibur's try to get them to watch the wrestling and focus a little bit.
Yeah, it's quite funny because they do have. It's not really a habit of going off on tangents or anything like that, but I do feel like it's the young guy, the new voice that is trying to hold it all together, which is quite good.
Come on, guys. Totally. JR went to the shades of a little too many times in this pay-per-view. He's reminiscing clearly.
Yeah.
So we started off with the very first match for the TNT title. We had Eddie Kingston versus Miro, who is the former Rusev.
Yeah.
No, there's no huge backstory to this, really. Kingston was pissed off at Miro had beat up someone that Kingston was friendly with, Fuego del Sol, only like last week.
Okay.
Miro's going on this whole God's favourite champion gimmick, which is brilliant for him, I think.
Yeah.
And Kingston asked for the match. That's basically it. And he was talking about he's got to redeem his soul. That's why Kingston's got the Redeem These Nuts t-shirt, which is good.
Okay.
So that's, short backstory. But, for me, this is a cracking way to start a pay-per-view. I think on paper it probably doesn't look it, but these two big bulls clashing was just a really good way to start a pay-per-view. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I liked it. Eddie Kingston wasn't a name I was familiar with. I'll probably say this a few times as we go through tonight. Obviously, I know Miro from the WWE days. I was immediately struck by the shape that he's in.
Miro?
He looks
unbelievable, doesn't he?
He does. And he always was one of those that you felt like was being a little bit underutilised where he was. The first thing that struck me about it is the commentary team, I think, do a really good job putting both guys over. I don't think there's any indication that one guy should feel inferior in this bout, which there very often is in other title matches that I've seen. I thought it was pretty physical, decent pace, decent tempo, and all that. Both guys can obviously work well. The thing that struck me right from this, and it actually struck me all the way through, much as there are a few funny comments from the announcers and all that, they actually, right through the show, focus on the match at hand. There isn't... I always felt like, and I know this was the case in the old WCW days as well as WWE, that it's like they're trying to sell you the main event when you've already bought the show. And they talk about other matches while one's taking place. I didn't think they did that really at all through this show. I felt like the focus was on the match, which is good, which is what you want.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was competitive. It made Eddie Kingston look on a par with Miro, especially the way the finish happened. I did worry a little bit with the way the finish happened, that is this going to be like a theme for the show? But I was pleasantly surprised as we go on through the other matches. But I suppose it sets it up for this to be, a program with a couple more matches potentially between the two.
Yeah, I agree. Something that I really like about AEW is when Justin Roberts is announcing the match, he'll tell you there's a time limit. 20-minute time limit for these TNT title matches. That's something brand new. They used to do that in the old days, didn't they?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I also like the win-loss record thing. I remember hearing, I think it was right near the start of when AEW launched, that this was going to be a factor. It would make sense to you why somebody was getting a match, somebody was getting a title match, and so on, so on, so on. So, because, guys should have a decent win-loss record if they're being put in a title picture type thing. So I did know, I can't remember what they were going into this, but I think for each match all the way through, apart from maybe the multi-participant ones, it gave you a win-loss record for the participants, which I like, because how long have we felt like wins and losses don't mean anything when watching other shows?
Yeah, and there's clearly sticking to it. Obviously, Christian came in how long ago now, and this is him in the title picture now. He's had to, and they're very adamant, he's had to work his way up and win matches. I think it's admirable, and it's a good principle to have, especially if you're going to have it. Keep it there for everyone. We'll see what they do with Bryan or Danielson. But yeah, I think it's a good thing to have in place. I think Miro's undefeated. In AEW, he had a hell of a match with Darby Allin to win this title on Dynamite. And he's like, when he first came in, they had this sort of goofy gimmick where he was like a gamer. And I've heard people say, they did that so that it came across as underwhelming. And then the plan was always to spin into this God's favourite champion gimmick, which sounds very apologetic. I don't know if that was ever the case or not, but this gimmick suits him perfect. And like you say, he's in incredible shape. Just looked like an absolute monster.
Yeah.
And Kingston, for his part, played that sort of never say die role perfectly as well, and he was never really out of it. They'd made some references on the previous show to him. He was going to. They talked about Miro's neck being his kryptonite, basically, and some of the suplexes that Kingston was hitting were brilliant, I thought.
Yeah, agreed.
So you mentioned the sort of finicky finish with the. What's his name? Kingston pulls the ring pad off the turnbuckle almost by mistake, and the referee's messing about trying to get that back. He won't let them use the exposed turnbuckle when he's trying to put that back on. Miro hits a heel-like low blow and sticks Kingston in his version of the camel clutch. And I believe that was the finish. That was I don't know, I just like that as a. Yes, it was heelish, and I know you were saying it was a little bit hokey, but it was eventually, like that sort of clean give up finish. So,
I thought it worked. I noticed there was I quite liked this, that the ref was getting quite a lot of heat from the crowd for not being in position to count when Kingston had Miro down. I think. The worry, the only reason I worried about the finish was because we have sat through some shows where there's not a clean finish in basically every single match. And this, it is a clean finish. There's a little bit of shenanigan, a heel maneuver to get him over the line, basically. Which I'm fine with when, it's not happening in every match.
Totally. So I thought a good way to start us off. And Miro gets that win, and he continues on his TNT championship. Reminded me a little bit of what they were doing. There's a lot of parallels, I think, with some of the stuff that we're watching in 1998, just as we go through this show. This certainly reminded me of the Booker T run that he's on with his title. Was that a TV championship? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Second match was a man that we are familiar with and a man that we're not so familiar with. To Satoshi Kojima versus Jon Moxley. There's a little part of me felt like we were seeing the same match again. A little bit. I don't know if it was just because Kingston does those in the quick succession chops, and then Kojima was doing the same. And Moxley, I don't know if you've seen much of Moxley since he's been in AEW, but he's a completely different looking guy. He's an absolute tank now.
Yeah, I hadn't, to be honest. I mean, I remember him because by the end of his WWE contract, he was quite slimmed down, I think. And it is a really different look. It's quite quite shocking how different he looks now. I've read more than I've actually seen. I've heard about some of the matches he's been having and things like that, which just sound absolutely crazy. I liked his intro. I quite like him coming through the crowd. I think that fits with him well. I think it was Wild Thing. I love that. That was playing, and the crowd were singing along with it. I thought that just seemed like quite a good fit for him.
I really love that. I don't know if I mentioned this. Him and Kingston are kind of like a partnership,
Right.
And their gimmick, like tying in with that sort of never say die attitude, is like fight anybody, anywhere, anytime sort of thing.
Okay.
And that's definitely since Moxley's left WWE and had a bit more freedom to go wrestle wherever he wants, sort of thing. That seems to be his thing. That he'll turn up in, like he'll turn up in deathmatch environments. He'll turn up in New Japan. He's had a lot of matches in New Japan, and obviously that's where this match with Kojima's come from. So yeah, what do you think of the match overall?
I quite enjoyed it. It was probably not one of my favourites on the card, but I thought it put Moxley over for what I assume they're doing with him. And, it's interesting listening to what you're saying about the character that he's portraying here. He seems to be performing in ring quite different as well from what I remember from the way he used to perform. Quite a brawler style. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the sort of never quit, never give up thing comes across. I'd probably be interested to see how they play that off when he's in a bit more jeopardy than he seemed to be in this one. Mm-hmm. I don't think I really thought that he was ever at risk of losing this match. I thought he basically, when they come out, I think he's gone over here, but part of that's maybe slight ignorance to not really knowing who the other guy is. I liked the respectful slant they played on it as well. It's the end of a match and he's won and he was expected to win, but there's still a lot of respect being given to the opponent, which I think, if you are going to have a never turn down a fight type character, you would expect there to be a level of respect there as well. So I thought that all made sense.
Yeah.
I didn't think in ring it was the most interesting and exciting match on the card, but I thought it was fine. It was obviously they potentially, looking at what happened at the end of the match, had a plan built in for moving forward with who he's going to be in a program with next.
Yeah. I just looked up Kojima's age. He's 50.
All right. Okay.
He looked in fairly good shape and he's moving about there. He's pretty agile.
Yeah.
He was playing better shape than Moxley.
Can you give me 2 minutes? Sorry, I'm getting a phone call.
Of course. And we're back. Adam was just getting a phone call from the Yakuza after not knowing who Satoshi Kojima is.
I wouldn't make that mistake again.
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember where we were, but you'd been talking about the respect thing, and it very much was like a kind of almost like certainly Moxley, and you get this a lot, like they're enjoying themselves, really quite enjoying knocking the shit at each other, biting each other in the face, exchanging chops, exchanging punches. So yeah, it's like another version of what we got in that first match, but not to the point where you're like, let's fast forward or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the fact that Moxley has the respect, he hits him with 2 paradigm shifts to stick him away, quite liked as well. So Moxley gets the win, and then we get our first surprise of the evening. Again, I am ignorant to Minoru Suzuki, and I guess you are as well.
I am. Yeah, the announcers were certainly putting him over, and I think he was getting a bit of a reaction from the crowd as well. But yeah, it wasn't a name or a face that was familiar to me at all.
He wants to have a word with his barber. That's the only thing I initially thought.
You're not like that, no?
Nah. But I can't really talk about haircuts, so fair enough, mate. Go for yours. Like you say, they're talking him up. He did give off. I said this to you in text. He was giving off vibes of like really hard old man. If you're, didn't stare at him in the pub.
Yeah, fair point. I think. Yeah, quite intimidating looking.
Definitely. And clearly Moxley was was pretty intimidated by him. He had the wide eyes and the oh shit sort of look.
Yeah.
And he comes out and basically beats the shit out of Moxley, hits him with a pile driver.
Yeah.
Something that just sort of popped in my head. John Moxley reminds me a wee bit of my girlfriend for high school. They both seem to have this uncanny knack of attracting the attention of like elderly Asian gentlemen.
Okay.
Which just was just a wee thought that popped into my head. But takes you back. Adam, good times. Good times.
Yeah, that was different.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So after Moxley getting the shit beat out of him by an old man, we come probably, and I don't say this lightly, probably come to my favourite match of the evening.
Yeah, I might well agree with you here. I really enjoyed this. I thought this was great.
Right, let's see if you've been watching. We had Chris Statlander versus Dr. Britt Baker. Adam.
DMD?
Oh, come on. D-M-D.
Okay.
Will we try it again, or will we do it the next time?
We'll do it the next time.
Okay. You mentioned to me on text like how over Baker is, and just how charismatic she is. She's just, there's no other way to sort of describe it. She's just like, she's got it, and the people know it, and she knows it, and AEW are using her perfectly. They were in Pittsburgh, which is where she's from, a couple of weeks ago, and the reception was similar to what Punk got in Chicago. It was amazing. Yeah,
I noticed. I think Punk referenced her in the reaction she got in his speech.
That's right. Yeah,
when he'd come out, but I wasn't familiar with her at all. But as somebody that had never seen her on screen or anything, she's definitely one of the most charismatic I've seen, because you're just kind of you're drawn to the character, and it's instant, really, and you just think. My thought immediately was she's, without knowing anything about her, was she's a star.
Yeah.
And that's without the need for having seen anything before, which is pretty rare.
Impressive. Something that a couple of things. Something that I wasn't sure about was just what she was like in the ring. I've never seen her in the ring, but I was blown away. Both her and Chris Statlander were amazing. Worked really, really well together. Quick question though, Chris Statlander from the Andromeda Galaxy?
Yeah. I was also going to ask, there's these guys in tracksuits just like standing behind, giving her thumbs up and stuff when she's coming out.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what that was about. I think, there's someone at the ring with her, and I did remember that, or I'd recognised the name.
Right. So this was, that came out with her, was the Best Friends.
Okay.
They're like their little faction, and the guy that was at ring with her is Orange Cassidy, and his gimmick is basically like he can't be arsed.
Okay.
So, it's a shame he wasn't wrestling on this show for you to get some exposure, but like he wrestles with his hands in his pockets the whole match, and he does these like daft wee kicks to the shins and stuff until he eventually realises that he can be arsed, and he starts going.
Okay.
That sounds absolutely ridiculous, doesn't it? But then he is at ringside with an alien, so...
Yeah. That was odd, but to be honest, I hadn't even... I'd heard the name Britt Baker before, but I hadn't heard the name Chris Statlander. Never even heard the name. I thought she was really good in the ring.
She was
very
brilliant.
Impressive. Yeah. I think they built her up as undefeated as well. And, undefeated against the reigning champion is, that feels right. It has a fit to it. I assume, I can't remember if they said, but I assume this was the first title match between the two anyway.
Yeah.
and it was just a really good match, actually, all round. I thought everything about it was really good.
Yeah, me too. Do you notice that Baker's got two heavies on the outside?
Yes.
So she's got this one, it's either Rebel or Reba, but she was like her original person, but she got injured, so she brought in the other one, the blonde-haired one called Jamie Hayter. And she wrestled on either Rampage or Dynamite the week before this, and she absolutely destroyed Red Velvet, who was previously the number one contender. And I was laughing at Orange Cassidy sort of trying to stand up to her. He's smaller than her. She would have pulled his head off. I was kind of hoping that it might happen. What I think that they might end up doing is somewhere down the line, Baker will end, like she'll end up turning on Baker or something like that. I think that would make for a really good match.
Makes sense as a story, so it's good to have those seeds kind of in the works nice and early.
As far as like in ring work in this match, there's a lot of highlights. At one point, Statlander hits a superplex off the top rope.
Yeah.
And it looks like she has to make some sort of change in the middle of it, and she's clearly holding her. It's really impressive.
Yeah, it's one of those where watching it kind of worried me a little because you're not sure how safe it is and whether both are going to be all right when it lands. It seems to have been fine, but it did look like something had to be adjusted on the way.
That's and also Britt Baker hits the curb stomp. Seth Rollins should retire that move. Because Baker hits that a million times better. Do you agree?
Yeah, she hit it really well. It just really good timing of it. Yeah, it was good.
And she hit a lovely looking Canadian destroyer off the second rope. That was our little homage to Adam Cole.
Now there was a move I noticed that I just wrote down that was amazing. Was it referred to as a Pittsburgh Sunrise?
Yeah, that's the same. So I think
that's the move. Your
Panama Sunrise,
right? Okay, that looked amazing. Just as a spectacle of a move, it just looked brilliant.
And she then went straight into curb stomp after that, and put this, she had her glove and she did the lockjaw thing. I'd never seen the lockjaw before, so I wasn't sure what that was, but it looked quite impressive. A mandible claw with, a bit of a crossface thrown in. Yeah. I've written down here, I think that's the best women's match I've ever seen. I don't know if that's true, but
I always worry there's like a little bit of recency bias, but I can't think of one that there's some that have been on a huge stage, there's some that have been a big spectacle, but I can't think of one that was just all round a better match.
Just technically a really good match. So yeah, definitely 5 stars, 25 Meltzer stars, and 2 thumbs up from us.
Brilliant.
So yeah, the hits keep on coming. Next one, TLC 3. I was laughing. I'd messaged you to say I think that this was as good as TLC, and you're like, hey now, calm down. You kicked me into a freezing cold shower and told me to stay in there until I calmed down.
Yeah, it is good. It is very good. It was a enjoyable match. It was entertaining. Some of it looked pretty brutal. The Young Bucks are very irritating, but that's the point. There's a lot good about this. I think, I have a feeling if you now went back and watched one of the TLCs, you'd be like, okay.
We'll see. Nah. So, yeah, we're talking about Young Bucks defending their tag team titles against the Lucha Bros. The whole gimmick point of the steel cage was because, as I'm sure you've probably worked out, that the elite members basically interfere in anything Bucks or Kenny Omega related. We've got their mate with the spray stuff, Brandon Cutler. He's always getting involved spraying. You've got the Good Brothers coming in and getting involved in various matches. So Tony Khan's stipulation was stick them in a cage and it can be a fair fight.
Are they... so the Good Brothers, who I recognised because they were on WWE a couple of years ago, are they actually on Impact? But I know there's a crossover between the two, because I was sure I'd heard they'd gone to Impact.
Aye, they did. Aye, they're Impact. I think they're Impact Tag Champs.
Right.
But basically they're on AEW every week.
Okay.
Yeah. Doors open now. I think pretty much. Obviously, Christian's Impact champion and wrestling on AEW, and he's been on Impact since winning that title and stuff. So there's a lot of crossover stuff going on.
Yeah, that's and I like that. It's just I occasionally get confused about who's where and things like that.
I think that's one of the things that can get confusing, and like it's something that I think AEW are doing really well is catering to their hardcore fans that want to watch New Japan and want to watch this and want to watch Impact and GCW, like wherever, and letting people cross over, and it makes sense, I suppose, especially when, you know, like when you had the indies where guys would wrestle one place one week and then elsewhere. So I think that is something that they do really well, but from a casual fan's point of view, may get confusing a little bit if you've got guys who are on the show one week and not on it another week, and they've got different belts on, and why are they wearing that? So be interested to see how they navigate that, probably as their popularity grows.
Yeah.
You contrast that to WWE, and you have people coming in from NXT, and you know, like they've got a completely different look, or they're got a different name. In the case of Piper Niven, and whatever it was that they had her debut as, and they're saying, who is this? And you know, like people are saying, well, we do watch other shows that you own and produce. So, I think one of the big things about AEW is that they're treating fans with a bit of respect and not treating them like idiots. And
yeah, no, it all makes sense to me, and it's working for them. I think I probably over the last couple of years have read more than I've watched, and so you see things like such and such is signed for, you know, Impact or AEW or something like that, but sort of the knowledge that they could then appear on an AEW show if they've signed for Impact. It's quite exciting because you can kind of fantasy book a bit, and you know it's very possible that it could happen. Yeah,
absolutely. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a wild tangent there. You just asked me if they were signed to Impact. So we've got Young Bucks, who are the tag team champions, against the Lucha Bros, Penta El Zero, and Rey Fenix.
Yeah.
And for a wee while there, Penta was, I don't know if Phoenix was injured, but Penta was wrestling as a solo wrestler. He was involved in a program with Cody Rhodes, which was quite good. And this guy that comes out with him, Alex Abraham, I can't remember what his second name is.
Alex Abrahantes.
Abrahantes, there you go.
Yeah.
He's like his translator. And they had this gimmick going where every single time he spoke, he would say Penta says. It doesn't sound like much, but it was really over. And this guy has got quite a good charisma and stuff. It's quite good. But since they've been involved in the tag, they need to stick together as a tag team. As far as I'm concerned, they're brilliant together. That's some entrance they had. Eh?
It was, yeah. I didn't know beforehand whether AEW would do, like, what would you call it, like a special entrance or something like that. Something a little bit different from the, you know, a TV entrance. But it was, I hadn't really seen one like it, I don't think.
It was cool. Dancers and all that. It's quite cool. What do you think of Nick Jackson's Hulk Hogan hair, facial hair?
Annoying.
Yeah. I think he maybe had contact lenses on as well. He looked really weird.
Yeah.
I hate the Young Bucks' hair. I know that it's, like you say, I know it's a gimmick. The earrings, the hair, the stupid headpieces and the cocky, arrogant walks.
Yeah, the way they walk is enough to irritate you. So I suppose they're doing something right as a heel team.
It's really difficult to describe this match. I've got a lot of notes, and there's a lot of exclamation marks. But yeah, let's try and talk through some. It was non-stop. For this to be 20 minutes, it felt like a hurricane. A really aggressive, violent hurricane. So let's try and. Have you got any highlights you specifically wanted to pick out?
I've not written an awful lot of detail. Like, I wrote about how early on there's a lot of nice like tag team combination moves going, and it's all at 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
I did write. It's almost at risk of being a spot fest, but in the fact that I must have been pretty confident looking ahead to what was to come. But I said, being again the only match on the card that's like that, I don't feel like it's annoying me the same way as it would if the previous match had been similar, or there were two matches on the card like that.
Totally, 100% agree with you.
Yeah, the pace. I was. This is one of the matches where I was really surprised when I checked the time. 22 minutes, and they're going 100 miles an hour for almost all of it. Both teams. I mean, the stamina is ridiculous. There were a few moments I liked in terms of some things that are, we've all seen so many cage matches before. I quite like the thing with the boot with the thumbtacks in it.
Yeah. Just on that, so the Bucks and Omega and the Elite people, they've got this backstage YouTube show called Being the Elite, and it's kind of like a video blog type thing wherever they go. After every week, there's a Being the Elite, and it's following them about the camcorder. And basically every week they go and buy Nikes, they go and buy Jordans. So that's kind of playing into that, like these hardcore fans will know that they're always buying different types of Jordans and all that.
Okay. I like that. It's so difficult in matches like this to get something you haven't seen before or haven't seen a version of before. So I thought that was a nice twist of this hasn't been done. Nobody's seen it. At first I wasn't sure exactly what was going on when, someone came out and threw the bag into the cage. And then they pulled the boot out with the tacks attached there. I just thought it was a nice touch, something a little bit different.
It's cool. And it was Matt Jackson that was wearing it. He hits a super kick on Ray Phoenix and it sticks to his mask.
Yeah, again, just a nice spot in it. Something a bit different.
We never mentioned we've got Don Callis on commentary here, who we are saying in 1998 as the Jackal. Did you make that connection? Do you know that?
Yeah, he's an interesting character. I think he been on Impact as well.
He was. Guy? I think he was certainly in the commentary team. I think he was maybe head booker on Impact.
It seems like not that. What was it? Some of our '98 stuff. He's been the Jackal that we've been watching through, and he's obviously. I didn't know whether he'd faded into the wilderness for quite a while and then come back, but he's certainly prominent now.
It's quite funny because if you make the connections, like it feels like the Jackal is like carny behaviour, with like the plastic gemstone in his forehead and all that, and it's almost like he's trying to pull the wool over his eyes, and that's his whole gimmick now. Is like he's this sort of carny type character, and Christian's delighted. That's almost Christian's new catchphrase is Don Callis is a carny piece of shit. And he's healing it up big style, and Schiavone eventually says, like, you're full of shit. I really liked that.
Yeah. There's a few, I've written down a few moves that I quite like. There's one, I don't know how to describe this one. It's basically a pile driver where the other teammate comes off the rope, and I think is it he kicks down on the person's head, or the person's feet or something, driving them down to the mat. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I remember watching and thinking that was awesome.
Yeah, he kicks off him and lands on the other tag team partner with his back.
Yeah.
It's really, they're just really, both teams, the innovation, that the stuff that they're doing is so, like, we're obviously grizzled veterans of watching this stuff, and to see stuff that you've never seen before is pretty cool.
Yeah, there was one bit that annoyed me a little bit.
I know what you're going to say.
I wonder if you do, but yeah. So there's a point where one of the Lucha Brothers climbs to the top of the cage.
Yeah.
He, I think, gets followed by one of the Bucks and kicks him down. So it's basically him on the top, his partner and the two Bucks down in the ring, and he does a flying crossbody off the top, and this seems to totally destroy the two Bucks, but his partner's fine.
Yeah.
Penta
just rolls backwards and gets straight back up, doesn't he?
Yeah, just a little thing that irritated me, given they all took the exact same impact. But it's fine. I wouldn't dwell on it.
I thought you were going to say the bit where they were all standing in a circle, exchanging chops and super kicks.
Yeah.
It's a wee bit hokey, but like, given what we've already seen, you can kind of just, I think you're probably lost in it a wee bit.
Yeah.
So, like you say, Phoenix goes off the top with the flying crossbody, Penta's up, grabs one of the Bucks. They do this sort of twist and spike pile driver type maneuver.
I like the look of that. What I wrote was it was like a tag team pedigree type move. Mm-hmm. And I also really liked the fact that when they went for the cover, the other Lucha is holding off because that's just logical, and it doesn't happen far too often. But of course it's what you would do, stop the other guy from breaking the pin. So I like that because it's just logic.
For me, I also liked the fact that this was a steel cage match, but the only way to win was pin or submission. There was no, relying on the hokiness of climbing out the cage, getting up the top. Oh, is he going to climb out? All that sort of stuff. They were in the cage, and there was only that real one. The very, very start, the Bucks made like they were going to climb out, and then Phoenix went up the top, and that was the only time. I think in years gone by, in other matches that we've seen, it would have featured a lot more heavily of climbing up, trying to get away, all that sort of stuff. So
I liked that as well. When it was announced at the start that was the only way to win, I thought that was quite important too, because people, I imagine this AEW show had more eyes on it than any other AEW show there's ever been. People are used to watching another promotion, WWE matches. You can win by climbing out, so I thought it was good to point that out for the sake of the audience. I think go out your way to try and see this match. It's a spectacle. I think it's the best way to describe it. Some incredible moves. It's nice to see tag teams that are proper tag teams and do tag team moves together. Yeah, as well. Definitely, because it feels like that's not really been a big factor for quite a few years. Mm-hmm. Not something that's been certainly heavily promoted on a card anyway. And it's not down to the lack of talented teams. It's just they don't get the exposure. They don't get the, most tag teams in WWE aren't on a pay-per-view. Yeah. It was good to see some of that. I loved the Rockers and the Hart Foundation, people that did moves as a team. Mm-hmm. So it's good to see some of that. And AEW have got, so the whole sort of concept behind this, the fact that the Lucha Bros got the title shot was that they won a tag tournament over the course of a couple of weeks. Okay.
So AEW are really deep with their tag teams as well. You've got FTR, which is who were the Revival in WWE. You've got Santana and Ortiz, who are aligned with Jericho. Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus that we saw at the end. Luchasaurus was the one that looked like a dinosaur. Never mind, that was supposed to be a joke.
I got it.
Who else?
And
They've got
Jungle Boy. Is Jungle Boy the actor's
Luke
son?
Perry's son, yeah.
Yeah, Luke Perry's son, yeah.
You've got Brian Pillman Jr.'s tag team, the Varsity Blondes, as well. Like, they've got a really deep tag team division, which is refreshing.
Yeah, that's definitely good.
And I think a really good way of offsetting this craziness was to go into this women's casino battle royal as well.
Can I just take another break? Sorry. Really sorry, I'm bursting for the loo.
No, you're right. That's another phone call for the accuser from Adam. They take the shit seriously, Adam. So we were just about to jump into the women's casino battle royal. I'd never seen a casino battle royal before. I quite liked the concept. It was like a good way of doing a Royal Rumble without calling it a Royal Rumble. What do you think of it?
I was a bit confused for part of it. I couldn't, I'd never seen it before. I'd never really heard. I knew they'd had the matches before, or that sort of structure of match before. So I assume everyone's allocated a suit. And then when, it's your suit, everyone who has that suit comes out. So I was trying to get my head round that idea. It was probably, if I'm being honest, the match I was least invested in.
Yeah.
Now I feel a bit harsh because I've just really enjoyed the Britt Baker match, and whoever wins this is going to be the number one contender. So I felt like I should be a bit more invested in it, but I found the concept interesting enough. I think not knowing who the vast majority of their performers were probably did have a factor, play a part anyway. These type of matches are always a bit of a mess. There's, a lot going on, and it's hard to focus on any one individual thing that's going on.
Yeah.
I think it's what, it's better than a basic battle royale because you don't have everyone in at once.
Yep.
Because then it's impossible.
It's silly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's obviously a way they've come up with to structure that better to try and stagger who's in at any given time. It was fine. It was entertaining enough. It probably just didn't grab me as much as anything else that was on the card.
Was there anybody that stood out to you that you thought, before Ruby Soho came out, was anybody that stood out that you thought they might win this?
I could tell they were making quite a big deal of Thunder Rosa, who I don't know the name, but it was the largest performer that they had in the match. She eliminated her.
Nyla Rose, I think. That
sounds right, yeah. So that puts her over to an extent, and she was, I think, the last one eliminated. So yeah, she was probably the other one that felt like they were, I suppose it is totally different from a Rumble, but you put over more than one person in the match, she would be the other one that I thought stood out.
The Kane of the match.
Yeah.
I think I like the concept of the Joker in this match, but at the same time you're almost showing your hand to play into the theme. You're almost showing your hand, especially when it's a surprise and it's someone brand new like that you're saying they'll probably win it. It's a bit like drawing number 30 in the Rumble sort of thing.
Yeah, they would kind of have to once or twice have that person not win it, which is quite a tough gig for whoever it is, because it almost buries them to an extent, because they should have every advantage. A
bit like Baron Corbin cashing in his Money in the Bank and losing.
Yeah,
a little bit. It's a lovely sort of welcome for Ruby Soho. She got a good ovation for the crowd. They were chanting for her before she even came out.
Yeah.
I thought they kicked the arse at the finish. I was just like, oh, come on. You know, the pair of them were on the side of the apron forever.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit, I think this happened between Bianca Belair and, what was the name of the big tall girl with the short hair in WWE?
Oh,
Completely
I know
forgotten her
exactly
name.
who you mean. She was champion until fairly recently.
Yeah, it'll come back to us. But it was a bit reminiscent of that. Like, yeah, we get it. Like, you're in trouble here. But yeah, I think she was always going to win it. And yeah, I don't really have a massive opinion on seeing her go on to fight Britt Baker, but I would watch it.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know if it's. I don't like the idea of them ever taking the belt off Britt Baker. Now, having watched what I watched, obviously you have to at some point, but I didn't watch and think, oh, that's somebody they could put the belt on. It didn't give me that feeling.
Aye, same. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
Okay, so here, so the next match is MJF versus Jericho. There's a lot of backstory to this match. I can't remember if they gave you a package before it. They probably did though.
Yeah, they did.
They've spent a lot of TV time on these two. Shock horror Jericho. Yeah, they've spent a lot of TV time on these two. They've had 3 matches previously, which MJF has all won. Obviously, the big stipulation here is if MJF wins, Jericho. It's funny that he didn't say he'd retire, but he won't wrestle in AEW again.
Yep.
The fact that MJF has won 3 matches suggests that you know where it's going, but yeah.
I'm just curious, because you've watched a little bit of the TV and I know you've not been on it for all that long. Going into this, did you believe MJF could win, given what the stipulation was?
Only if it was a hokey finish that had some way of Jericho getting out of retiring.
Okay.
When he put his leg on the rope, I thought, aye.
Yeah, okay.
For me, this is booked upside down, and this might be a completely different episode to speak about it, but this feels completely booked upside down. I think it would have made more sense if the heel has been beaten 3 times, is still moaning about it, and said, right, I want one final go at you. And, you know, maybe the face says, well, I've beaten you 3 times. If you beat me, you can retire me, because I don't believe you can beat me. The heel goes over, and, you know, like the young heel goes over. It's all upside down to me. I feel like, I don't know how much influence Jericho has in booking, but I feel like a lot of this is an ego trip for Jericho. The fans singing his music. He's getting so much TV time. I think he was a brilliant flag bearer for them when he signed for them, and in that first year or whatever. The rumour is that he's going off on a world tour with Fozzy. This seemed like a really, like, nothing in wrestling is forever. You can get out of these things.
Yeah. I think Ric Flair retired about 20 times.
There's a lot of eyes on this pay-per-view, giving MJF the rub and giving him an opportunity to climb the ladder to the next level. For me, it would have made a lot more sense, but that's my own gripe.
Okay. Yeah, it's my first time seeing MJF. I really like him, but, you know, in the sense that he is the heel and he's a total dick. But
that's his gimmick. He's a dick.
Yeah. I mean, what I've written in my notes was the MJF intro has Jericho's last match going up on the screen, which I really like.
How good is that?
Yeah.
In the countdown.
And then I've just written, MJF is an arrogant bastard, and I love it. He's winding up the fans as he walks down to the ring. And I wasn't sure what type of performer he would be either, just having never seen him before. Because he's quite, or certainly in this match, it was quite methodical. He's quite like mat-based performer. They reference that he's got the three wins over Jericho previously. The commentators are really putting it over, saying that, one mistake, 3 seconds could cost Jericho his career. So
I liked JR saying that. That made a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. And it really sells how high the stakes are. The match is so much more about story than it is about the in-ring content, and that's the way it's been built, and it makes sense to be that way. Just having watched it and having not followed the TV and things like that, it does feel like a bit of a missed opportunity. It looks and feels like this is your biggest show, this is your most eyeballs. You could put him over, you could put the young guy over, you could find a way to do it. Maybe even had they done the, Jericho goes off, does his tour, comes back, but doesn't come back to AEW TV, goes back to Impact TV, goes and wrestles in Japan and stuff like that. Yeah. And then you find a way from there to get him back on, if that's what you need to do. And they could have made all that work. So it does feel like a little bit of a missed opportunity.
I agree. You could have stuck them in the, what was it Edge and Christian dressed up as that time? Was it Conquistadors or something like that? They weren't supposed to get, they weren't supposed to get a title shot to the Hardys, I think, so they dressed up as like something else with masks on and that.
Christian's there, why is he not suggesting this?
Exactly.
He's saying, he could have been saying, I've still got the costumes, you can do this.
I'm sure Hogan did that as well. Did they not dress as like the Patriot or something?
Oh, I think so. Ric Flair did it as well. I can't remember what he called himself to get a match against Sting, I think, when he was never supposed to get another one. Yeah.
I think MJF's a bit of a throwback from his heel gimmick to his in-ring work. Mm-hmm. I really like him, and like you said, a good opportunity. I mean, he gets over regardless. He's in a match with Chris Jericho. If you're brand new to this and this is your first show, you're buying it because CM Punk's on it, then this guy that's putting up a class fight with Chris Jericho, you're probably interested anyway, but
yeah, you'll notice him. Yeah, and then what did you make of the foot on the rope finish?
Like I say, I thought that might have been it, and if that had been it, I think I'd have been alright with it. There was logic to it, and I liked the logic part of Aubrey Edwards, the referee, missed it because there'd been that brawl outside with Wardlow and Jake Hager.
Yeah.
But also the senior official had come down to run them off. So he was at ringside, so he was able to say, I saw what happened. I like all that logic.
Yeah.
So for that point of view, it wasn't just restart the match because who says so sort of thing. It all made sense for that point of view, so I think I was alright with it.
Yeah, that was Jake Hager. That's who that was. It's one of those where I thought I recognised that guy.
Yeah.
And then I thought, who is it? I couldn't quite get the name to come out, but I thought it was all fine from that point of view. I think if we do look at it as maybe on a big show, the wrong guy going over, that's fine. It happens. It definitely made me think that this is a guy to keep an eye on who's gonna go to the top. I think did they say he's like in his mid-20s?
He's like 26 or something.
Which is incredibly young for a guy to be having a match like this on a show like this.
Yeah.
He should have a hell of a career ahead of him.
He's one of these guys that stays in character the whole time, so you'll see photos on the internet of like kids taking photos with him and he's giving them the finger right in their face. Somebody had tweeted a photo of their kid with him, and like the kid looked about, I don't know, 6 or 7 or something like that. His reply was, "Is it too late to abort?"
Oh my god.
He just does things like that all the time. I think when Brody Lee's young son was featured heavily on the programme, like he was saying stuff like, "Fuck that kid."
Wow.
He's brilliant.
Wow.
Like you just don't get characters like that, I don't think, anymore. I think that's what helps him stand out. So I could see him and Punk doing something. Him and Brian as well. It'd be good.
Yeah.
So after the restart, MJF goes for his armbar. Sorry, going back before that, there's a couple of moves that I really quite liked. There was they exchanged code breakers, flying code breakers at that. I thought they were both really impressive.
Yeah.
There's a point where Jericho is on the top rope and he's got MJF sitting, he's doing the punches and he goes for Hurricane Rana and it gets reversed into this really awkward looking sort of pop-up powerbomb type thing.
Yeah.
I really liked that. It looked brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did. Yep.
But once Jericho gets his foot on the rope for the finish, MJF goes for his armbar. It's called the Salt of the Earth. And this was reminiscent of their match on Dynamite where MJF got him to tap out. He got the armbar. Jericho reversed it into a small package type pin. He pulled him all the way back and got back on and Jericho tapped. But this time Jericho manages to roll back through and get the Walls of Jericho and MJF taps. So pretty good storytelling for that point of view, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Jericho wins and we have to sing his song and stuff.
Yeah, I thought he did quite a good job of looking quite emotional about it, Jericho, having got the win that saved his career. Yeah. I didn't realise he was actually going to be off the scene for a while, which does it changes my thoughts on it a little bit. I just keep thinking of the opportunities that were then there. I get it if you want him on your TV because, along with some of the new arrivals, he's, in terms of name recognition, he's one of the biggest stars they've got. So I do get that. But yeah, there was maybe an opportunity to do something there.
I suppose at least if he is taking time away, then out of sight, out of mind for MJF, and you can push him into something else and you don't have that lingering thing of like that he got beat by Jericho sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, he can still come out and say, well, he won 3. You know,
that's true.
If there's any question about it in the absence of Jericho, if he won 3 matches. So.
That's true.
Yeah.
Which takes, I mean, this pay-per-view is just like match after match. When I was looking at it on paper, the kind of one-on-one match, one after one-on-ones, I wondered how it might lend itself, but it definitely doesn't have any sort of detrimental effect to what you're watching, I don't think.
Well, one of the biggest things I noticed is, aside from the video packages, and I think there's like one interview somewhere in there, there isn't the, backstage segments and things like that. It is just, one match to another and to another and to another. And, they've, I can't remember how many matches there actually were, but everything getting, like you mentioned earlier, well, apart from one, almost everything got a pretty good length of time allocated to it. And it's something you wouldn't really see in WWE. I think they're of the view that short attention spans and people lose interest and things like that, but it worked. It really worked on this show.
Yeah, it did. And yeah, from this one-on-one sort of built-up match, we go into another one, and probably the reason we're doing this episode, to be fair, the return after 7 years of CM Punk to the squared circle, taking on Darby Allin, without Sting in his corner. Sting had said he's going to come out. What he actually said was he was going to come out, fist his partner, and then go back to the locker room. Maybe that's why Darby jumped on his skateboard immediately and flew down just in case the Stinger got any ideas. But yeah, obviously it's face versus face, and Sting's come away to kind of give them the opportunity just to go one-on-one, which I quite like. We get a really weird video package type thing where we have Darby in a helicopter with a body bag, and he jumps out of the helicopter. which
Yeah.
was a little bit
I
weird.
didn't really know what was going on there. What I've written in my notes was there's a video package. Did he put Punk in a body bag and then jump out of the helicopter? Darby Allin seems a bit of a character.
Yeah.
So I don't really know anything about him. I'd heard the name. I'd never seen a match, I don't think. And yeah, I didn't know. I know he's affiliated with Sting, but I didn't know like what his character is.
His character's kind of like, if I could try and describe it, his character's kind of like depressed, cool, millennial daredevil who is straight edge, likes skateboarding, and takes lots and lots of risks. Kind of like a tranquilized Jeff Hardy.
Okay, that makes sense.
He does crazy stuff. He's been putting body bags and thrown downstairs in matches. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. So yeah, I really like him. And I think, like Punk said something like, if I was a teenage boy, Darby Allin would be my favourite wrestler.
Right.
He definitely gives off that sort of vibe.
Yeah. There were a few things, I wasn't sure what to make of the pre-match video and all that, but in match, there's it's kind of weird seeing Punk as being, the veteran, the slowing down the pace, the sort of mat general that he was being in this match, because they talk up the unpredictability and the speed of Darby Allin. Yeah. And the things that kind of stood out to me was he's really explosive. Like some of the moves, the speed that he does them, he doesn't seem to be too concerned about potentially doing himself any damage or any harm. He's just like the speed and explosiveness of everything that he did was pretty eye catching. Yeah,
I love that as well. And I said he'd had a match with Miro, and you imagine the sort of difference between the body sizes and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. That was how he was able to sort of get any sort of offensive on Miro, was that speed is unbelievable. I love the way he does that. He flies into them in the corner or the dive, the suicide dive. It makes it believable that he could hurt somebody much bigger than him because of the way that he throws himself about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like for me, this match, I was a little bit worried that this match they might just use Darby and have Punk throw him about the place and basically it'd be a sort of bump fest. Okay. It wasn't at all. It was like an old school wrestling match. I loved it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really good. I thought it lended itself to the story when they're talking about Punk, potentially being a bit rusty. There's, a lot of years since he last wrestled a match. He is the guy trying to keep the pace low, which makes sense against an opponent that's so fast. Mm-hmm. But maybe also real life suited Punk a little bit to let himself ease in, because he's dictating some of the pace early on with, some sort of stalling moves and things like that. And it made sense doing it in that scenario. And they've got, him showing some veteran moves. Like there's a point where, I don't know if they use this phrase, but it's an old classic. He's playing possum. Mm-hmm. And just the sort of the realization that the ring awareness and the ring smarts are still there and things like that.
Yeah, I really liked that. Right towards the end, Darby went for his coffin drop, which is when he dives from the top rope backwards and just lands on them. And the timing, the timing of the way that Punk sat up like the Undertaker was brilliant. And Punk sits up and he's just like laughing. I don't know if he's laughing because he's saying, like, I got you, or if I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's just laughing at the crowd or something, but I really like that. He's definitely playing that veteran, like you say.
Yeah, and that kind of thing works quite well with his character. Like, it almost, that I noticed that laughing as well, and I'm thinking, it doesn't really matter what way he means it, because it kind of works on a few different levels.
Yeah.
It's just some sort of nice little nuances that were in there.
And someone on Instagram very impressively pulled together some little clips from this match and compared them with the match. Would you say it's a famous match, or would you say it's like a sort of underrated classic match that Brett had with the 1-2-3 Kid? Years and years ago.
I remember, I think it is referenced quite a lot. And I think also the fact that at the time, I think Brett was champion, or certainly in that mix. And there was a feeling that, I've heard this come up quite a lot, a veteran can either choose basically to give his very much under opponent a lot or not a lot. And there's, a right way to do it and a not so right way to do it, because, Brett's going to win the match, but he kind of made 1-2-3 Kid look like a star. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a weird one, because you sometimes hear about the top tier talent being criticised for giving an opponent too much because they're supposed to look dominant and strong. But you can make a guy by doing it. It doesn't need to win the match. Yeah. You can make him.
I think that's exactly what Punk's done here. You've obviously never seen Darby Allin before. I'm guessing you'd be quite interested to see what he does next. Yeah. I think this whole show behind Britt Baker, he's probably the person that I hadn't seen before that I'm most keen to see again. Mm-hmm. I'm very curious, like career-wise, what happens with MJF, but any match that Darby Allin was announced as being in, I'd be thinking, I want to see that. Yep. And like, having seen him with Miro, I've seen him wrestle Keith Lee before as well. I think you can put him in with anybody, and he can do the things that he does because of that speed factor, that unpredictability, and also that clearly, like, I don't really give a shit about my body. Like, that bump that he took where he landed in between the two turnbuckles and hit himself off the ring pole was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't. I felt like the announcers were kind of conflicted. It seemed like Schiavone really wanted to sell that happened, and I don't know if it was JR or Excalibur were a wee bit more like, let's not talk about that because that might not be too clever what he's just done.
Yeah, one of them seemed to be suggesting he banged his head, and another one was saying he'd hurt his back or something, weren't they?
Yeah,
that's a bit funny. Like I say, I don't think I wouldn't say there's huge highlights in this match. I think it's a really good wrestling match, really well paced, and I think if Punk has come in to put over some of these younger talents and to highlight them, he's done it. They've done it perfectly there.
Yeah, agreed. And I know that is something he indicated that he wanted to do, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. He wanted to work with the young talents, and he wanted to help people get over. It came across as a very competitive match. There's a lot of reversals when people are like, I think Punk must go for the GTS about 3 times before he actually hits it. I think he hits it twice, doesn't he? 'Cause he hits it once, and Darby Allin rolls to the outside. He
falls at the ring, aye.
Yep. But yeah, it came across as a very competitive match.
Definitely. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I feel like it's one of those matches that could probably disappoint because it's so built up. Yeah. But to me, I don't think it could have been any better.
Yeah,
really enjoyed it. So from that we go to our co-main event. Not really, but
wow.
We go to the feud between No More BS Paul White against QT Marshall, or QT Marshall as he likes to be called. Got a bit of the old Hyacinth bouquets going on there. Wasn't one that I was really looking forward to. To be honest, had visions of just fast forwarding through this, but having watched it live, I did not hate it at all. I actually quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. I didn't know QT Marshall. It was a wee bit like it wasn't a squash. It went on a little bit longer than a squash, but it was basically Paul White dominating from the beginning. I must be honest, I don't really have any interest in watching Paul White wrestling anymore.
No.
I think much as I've mentioned it a couple of times about other match types and things like that, it is a squash, it's a quick match, it's a dominant match, but again, there's only one of them on the show, so it's fine. And I assume they're going to use Paul White in a very, very much a special attraction type role. It's not like he's going to be in ring work in every show. I don't think he should be or needs to be. I think there was every indication that he wanted to be active in ring again, which is fine. I just hope they don't overdo it.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what they'll do with him. I think he's been on one of their YouTube shows. He's been a commentator on one of their YouTube shows. But he's had this thing with QT Marshall. And like it plays into the QT Marshall gimmick of like, just he's a bit like what you said about MJF. He's just a bit of a dick, and he started poking the bear, and yeah, he got what comes with doing that. The only thing there's something a bit funny with Paul White and what? Sorry, hold on 2 seconds. There we go. Sorry, I had to do a COVID test and I'm coughing. So on the Dynamite or the Rampage, don't know which one, before this, Paul White had beat up Marshall and his buddies, the Factory, I want to say that his faction's called, and then Billy Gunn and his two sons, Austin and the other Gunn, the Gun Club, came down and they'd played up this thing as like, oh, they've got a long-term friendship and all that. Then Billy Gunn had hit him with a chair, and Tony Schiavone referred to Billy, or Excalibur maybe, look at Billy Gunn and his scumbag sons. Like literally 2 seconds ago they were lovely lads. They've not done anything, it's just that their dad's hit this guy with a chair.
He's an emotional guy, Tony.
And I thought that might play into it. It didn't play into it at all, which I was pleasantly surprised about. I think this 3-minute match was exactly what was the right thing to do after Punk and Darby. If we went straight into the main event, it may be a little bit exhausting. So
yeah, I think there's that thing, you kind of need to cool the crowd down a little bit before you bring them up again.
Yeah.
And it's a wee bit harsh if you're the person in that match, but it's the right type of match to do it with.
Yeah, totally. I think it did its job, and that's probably why it was there in the first place.
Yeah.
We go from that into a coked up Jon Moxley promo, hyping his match with Minoru Suzuki on Dynamite this week. We jump from that straight into a Malachi Black promo, who has got this sort of thing going on with the Nightmare family, which is Cody Rhodes' faction. He went after Cody. He kicked the shit out of Brock Anderson, which is Arn Anderson's son.
Okay.
He knocked out Arn Anderson as well, which is maybe a bit harsh, Malachi.
Oh.
And he's now got a match with Dustin Rhodes on Dynamite this week, so that was just hyping that up. That'd be your first time seeing him. What do you think of his little promo there?
Yeah, there was I think you maybe sent me it. There was like a video when he was coming in where was it like he didn't, what had happened in the last few years wasn't real? And he was like,
he's in
I quite like that.
In an asylum or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't know kind of where he was going from there, what they were going to do with him. Again, we talked about when we were talking Miro, people who were kind of underused, undervalued. He would go into that category as well, and I'm just hoping they can they can use him properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like him and Andrade are fairly similar in that they were underutilised and they're really good characters.
Mm-hmm.
So far, they've been using him really well. I think he's a really creative guy, and a bit like Bray Wyatt in that respect, that he seems to come up with a lot of his own stuff.
Right, that's encouraging.
So that takes us to our main event. Our boy, Captain Charisma himself, Christian Cage, versus Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship. This is a rematch of a match they had 2 or 3 weeks ago, which was for the Impact World title, which Christian won, which was a big deal because Omega's been undefeated for a fairly long time now, and he's very much built as the centrepiece of AEW. What did you think of all this? There's a lot going on here, but what did you think of this?
So, in terms of the actual match, I'm very happy that the Christian looked competitive all the way through. I'd seen, I think it was just the closing stages of the previous match, which looked excellent. It was just really well done. I got the impression that was maybe a better in-ring just match than this was. Certainly the way it kind of culminated to a finish seemed really well done. I like the sort of mantra that they're given to Christian. Was it outwork everyone? Mm-hmm. I think it was. I thought that there was some good moments. I've got Christian hitting a couple of spears for a 2-fall, 2 count. I've got Christian going for a frog splash, Omega getting the knees up, just some, old school. Is that referred to as old school now? It probably is, given when I was watching them when they were doing things like that. You've got people, both of them on each side, selling injuries. I think with Christian, it's ribs. Omega, was it his back? Yeah. I think. Which again, I like. It gives a match a focal point. It gives somebody something to attack. There was a couple of kicks and knees that Omega gave Christian that I think for one, they sold it as Christian's knocked out. It did look like it had the look and feel of a pretty brutal one, which was good. I haven't seen an awful lot of Omega previously. I think I've definitely seen him before. I can't remember where or what the matches were or anything. It could have even been years ago. He just, as soon as I saw him, I thought, I've seen this guy. Right. But he wasn't at the level he's at now. Mm-hmm. I think at the time, comedy would be the wrong word, but I think he was doing a bit more silly stuff in matches at the time. Whereas now, very much being sold as the best. And I think the commentators refer to him as the best, and the fact nobody can touch him and things like that. So the fact that they'd given Christian the win for the Impact belt means that it gave a little bit more emphasis to this match. Yep. And the reference is the only guy that's actually beat him for a very long time. I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite a good contest in ring, and then we've got the sort of, it's Don Callis, isn't it? Calling for help at a point, and then the deck being stacked a little bit, and the guys you mentioned previously, is it Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy coming out to try and help. But I thought it was fine. It decent match, pretty good in ring work, and then it becomes clear as you get to the end where all this is actually really heading. Mm-hmm. I
think, just going back to Omega, I think he's a little bit Marmite as far as his character's concerned. Mm-hmm. I think you get people that absolutely love him. I think you maybe get people that don't really get him. I think I'm still warming up to what he's supposed to be. He fits in obviously with the Elite and the Bucks with that arrogance, which is obviously what he's going for. But there's this sort of goofy part that I'm not really sure that I get. it's maybe just what I've been sold in the past, and it's different. But I just feel like if somebody is as good as, like, his in-ring ability is undeniable, clearly. But if he is as good as what he's been sold as, I expect more of a, I don't know, sort of an above it all type attitude rather than this sort of silly, goofy, you know, like at one point he jumps off the apron and does that double foot splash on Christian and breaks the table, and then it's like, did I do that to the camera? It's just all a bit silly.
The did I do that? I could have done without that. It kind of annoyed me a bit.
Aye.
But he's definitely. I try to watch it for what it was and not think, because you know he's been buried by some people. Some of the more, you know, the Pritchards, the Cornettes just don't like him, don't rate him, thinks he doesn't take the business seriously. But I think they're maybe looking at more historic things rather than what he is now, because it's definitely more of a balance now. As you say, the in-ring work, and he's right up there with the best around.
Yeah.
I thought that, you know, some of the exchanges they had, there's Christian goes for a top rope kill switch at a point. Omega gouges his eyes. Christian gets up on his shoulders. Omega hits one-winged angel? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
From the top rope to retain. I thought that was a nice sequence and all that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
They seem to be putting over the kill switch quite strong. He did kick out of one, but I assume that was the move that put him away for the Impact title, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did it on a chair.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just the closing sequence of that match, just from what I watched, I just found it a wee bit more interesting than this one.
Yeah, I think that final little sequence with the one-winged angel off the top rope was pretty impressive. The one-winged angel is probably the most protected finishing move in pro wrestling. I think the whole story is that nobody's ever kicked out of it.
Okay.
So the fact makes it quite a big deal that he's felt that he has to do it off the top rope to Christian to put him away. So that adds to a bit of gravitas to that. These snapdragon suplexes that he does, I find really impressive and brutal. And, you know, like a caring mother begin to worry about Christian and his concussion issues, taking these knees and suplexes on the head, and it's a bit. I mean, I'm sure he's obviously fine to do it, but it just, I suppose it adds into when you're watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think either of us would feel ashamed for admitting Christian's kind of our guy. Certainly one of our guys that we've always enjoyed watching.
Definitely. Found
him to be a really good all-rounder. And I think, I hope they keep him at a good level. I mean, given the talent that's coming in and that's come in, it's probably tough to have him long term in a title picture. But even if he's, you know, the guy with the Impact belt helping that get over, you know, I think there's a big role for him there.
Definitely, I genuinely think he looks better than he ever has. I think a bit of age on him suits him. And he looks 100% the sort of main eventer. No question there at all, I don't think. After all that, Omega wins and retains his title. We then immediately get a little bit of an NWO style flood of the ring and beat down on Christian. And that's reminiscent of what's kind of been happening in the last couple of episodes of their TV, where the Elite have basically been beating up Christian. Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus come out and are getting beaten up as well, and that's exactly what happens here.
Yeah.
Omega grabs the mic and says that there's, what does he say? Nobody's on par with him. The only people who would have a chance to beat him are either not here, retired, or are dead. and the lights go out, and the whole point of them saying are dead is because on this being the Elite program, before Adam Cole signed for NXT, he was part of the Elite and he was part of the Bullet Club, and he was on that show and they killed him when he left to go to NXT.
Okay.
And they had like a funeral for him and all that. It's very silly. But that's the whole thing about him saying are dead. Right. The lights go out. We get this amazing Rage Against the Machine style music and the big Adam Cole baby on the Titantron. It was a cool entrance.
Yeah.
And he's like mega over, isn't he?
Yeah. I know, like, I've seen his work in NXT. He always felt like a guy that could have a big role on one of their A shows, but I don't know. Looking back, it's maybe a good thing that never happened. Mm-hmm. But he has something about him, and you know, he's an excellent worker, obviously, but he kind of has something about him that probably does play well into being a heel. So I think they've probably made the right move here. I did wonder to myself, if they hadn't had the other big names coming in, would they have approached this differently? But I think the way they went with it worked. Yeah,
I think so as well. I think if it had just been Cole coming out and hitting Jungle Boy, it might have been feel a little bit deflating. Mm-hmm. But as he's squaring up to the Elite, he hits Jungle Boy with a super kick and they all hug, and Adam's one of our best friends and all that sort of stuff. I like when he grabs the mic and says, "Who's ready for story time with Adam Cole, baby?" That's good.
Yeah.
So Kenny is then about to bid us good night and do all his thing that he tends to do, and then Ride of the Valkyries hits with some booty shaking trap beat playing along the side of it, and Bryan Danielson comes out with his. He doesn't need to do anything, does he? He's just smiling at the crowd and nodding his head to the beat, and they're going bananas.
Yeah, I was thinking, see, when this happened, I used to read, I can't remember what it was called, there was like a wrestling magazine years ago, and they always talked about this guy on the indies called Bryan Danielson, and I was like, I'd never seen his matches or anything, and I thought, this guy, they talk about him 5-star matches everywhere all the time. I had just got used to the name Daniel Bryan. So now I'm back to square one. I'm going to have to be trying to learn Bryan Danielson again. I wasn't sure as well whether they would embrace the yes chants. I mean, they're going to happen. There's no avoiding it. And then there was an interview I read by him saying that he doesn't know from a legal point of view whether there's any issues. Yeah. They probably can't create the same merch and things like that, but you can't stop a crowd that are just chanting yes, you know. Yeah. What can you do about that?
I did notice that he didn't do the fingers. It was just hands in the air. You surely can't patent or have trademark on the word yes.
I wouldn't have thought so.
If you can, I'm sure, or if you can, I'm sure WWE will try to.
It's quite interesting because you've got CM Punk who's come in and there's clearly still some bitterness. You know, I saw something of him saying that he did actually have talks with WWE, but he felt like they were playing games. So he just pulled the plug. He wasn't interested. Yeah, I think this was, did he say around December? And he approached it as, I don't need this. I don't need to do it, but I'll speak to them and see what they're saying. And the first thing he apparently said to them was, I'm not interested in any games. I want you to just, lay it out. Here's exactly how you would use me. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what freedom I would have, all that kind of thing. And then apparently he immediately started thinking, this isn't for me. This isn't going to work. They're saying one thing and then contradicting themselves and all that. So he's still got that hanging over him. Bryan Danielson couldn't be more respectful. He's basically come out and said, I loved it there. They were so good to me. It was my dream. I just decided I wanted to do something different. I wanted less dates. I wanted to work with new people. And it's such a difference between the two of them and their attitudes towards it. And I don't think Adam Cole buried them either. I think he just said he basically just wanted to go somewhere where he could work with people he knew and all that. But yeah, Punk, I think, is still carrying a bit of feeling from everything that's gone on.
I think you can understand that with Punk. I think with both Bryan and Cole coming out and saying that puts AEW over massively. Mm-hmm. The fact that Bryan Danielson is saying that they offered him a good package, they offered him the opportunity to wrestle other places as well. Mm-hmm. They've always looked after him. I think he talked about Vince being really protective of him with his concussion issues and all that. But this is where I wanted to come. I think
he still chose this, so it does. Yeah, it puts it over, definitely.
Like, he was brilliant when he got in the ring and started doing those yes kicks on Nick Jackson, and then he hit him with a hellacious kick in the middle of the ring. Mm-hmm. He's still smiling, that smile.
Yeah,
and you see Adam, like I could see an Adam Cole Bryan Danielson rivalry. Like you overshadowed my big debut and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, it should be really good. They're a good match for each other.
And there's, I feel like now you could fantasy book to the cows come home with all the different talent that AEW have got now, especially now that we've seen some of the other guys that we've maybe not seen before, like Eddie Kingston and Darby Allin and MJF and guys like that their roster's deep. Yeah. Like, you've got Andrade and Pac was supposed to be on this, that wasn't on it. Mm-hmm. You've obviously got Malachi Black that we've talked about there. We've got all those tag teams that we've talked about. Their roster's just as strong as the other side. They're probably stronger.
Yeah. I think in ring, it's if you exclude, in fact, whole package, if you exclude Lesnar, not Lesnar, what am I saying? If you exclude Roman Reigns, I don't think there's really anything on the WWE show that competes with a lot that's here. It's like, I made a few notes to myself, just kind of summing up what I thought of it. So a few things I'd mentioned before, where the announcers are fully invested in each match while it's on. There's a lot of variety match to match. The storytelling in ring was really impressive. The wins and losses mattering, that matters to me. And it feels like, to me, I feel like this was a show that kind of, they leveled up. It felt like they come out of this show and you can look and say, yeah, the talent has improved because they've brought in some excellent talent. But people who are buying it to see those talents are also seeing the guys they've never seen before. Mm-hmm. So it just felt like the whole company kind of leveled up compared to, if you look at where they are after the show compared to where they were before it.
I love that. I love that. I was genuinely worried that from what we've spoke about on here, like you've probably made it pretty clear that you've fallen out of love with watching anything that's basically current. Yeah. And I've only really watched bits and pieces because my son's been watching it. But yeah, I love to hear that. Do you feel like you're in love, and you don't care who knows it?
Let's not get carried away.
Damn it.
But I'm definitely not against the thought of watching more. So that's a big change from where I am with WWE. Because I just don't want to see anything new from there. The only reason I use the network is to watch old stuff, and sometimes interviews, and that type of programming.
Skull sessions and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we've gone maybe the three last pay-per-views I don't think I've watched, and they're already basically bought and paid for, but I just don't have any enthusiasm for them.
No, it's a chore. A chore to watch. I think I think a lot of the stuff that we've seen in this pay-per-view and leading up to it, there's no swerve for swerve's sake. There's no, well, it was the obvious thing to do, so we didn't do it. There's more. You more get like it was the obvious thing to do. It's what the fans wanted, so we do it. So we've done it.
Yeah.
There's no that thing of trying to be above the fans, and it's probably the difference between Tony Khan being a fan and Vince McMahon being a businessman. If you're comparing the two, it feels a little bit like one of us getting a chance to fantasy book some things. It's got to be. It's a positive thing. The other good thing is you're not getting pay-per-views every month either. You're getting 4 pay-per-views in a year. So you can properly build up, and it means your TV counts for something as well. Yeah,
I hope they're able to stick to that, because the more they grow, the more demand there may be for an increase. But you would hope that if they were planning to get to that level, I imagine it'll be quite slow anyway. But I noticed there was I think it was Jericho was saying that he believes within, I think, 4 to 6 months that AEW will beat either SmackDown or Raw in the ratings.
Right.
And he was saying, I'm not saying we will then win every week. I'm saying I believe the gap's closing and we will win a week, and that would be huge, because it's not that long ago that was unthinkable. It was unimaginable for any other wrestling show to get more viewers. So be interesting to see if that does happen. I hope they don't try to grow too quick. I think the pace they've been going at has been pretty good. I hope the guys that they've got, that they're kind of, their talents, the way I look at it, and talking about guys like MJF and Darby Allin, and, they've obviously been elsewhere, but not on a major company. I hope that they are able to keep them in prominent positions as well.
Yeah. It almost feels like you just want them to slow down now and consolidate what they've got, and not now, not then go Bray Wyatt, what's his name, Braun Strowman,
Yeah.
And that's where you start tipping into. I think at the moment they're running a really good comparison with WCW, maybe 1996, 97 WCW. We don't want 1998 Hacksaw Jim Duggan on Thunder WCW.
Yeah, no, don't need that. And they haven't been signing every guy that's been released.
No.
So I'm hoping that they're applying that kind of logic to like, who do we really want? Who's going to improve what we've got, rather than, people might know who that guy is, let's sign him. That wouldn't work long term.
Nah. The issue is that WWE keep releasing people that are good.
Yeah, it's a strange tactic right now, but
let's chuck them a few more bones. Let's try and make it it's not really an even contest. Financially, clearly WWE, I'm sure AEW mean nothing to WWE from a financial point of view. They're nowhere near them, but like in ring and what they're producing is just, I would say AEW are far ahead.
Yeah. Agreed.
With a lot of potential. So, maybe see you back in November for Full Gear.
I'm definitely not ruling that out.
Ooh, I like it. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It feels like a little bit of not a turning point, but a nice sort of moment in professional wrestling currently. Yeah,
definitely. Yep, enjoyed it.
Excellent. Cool. Well, we'll revert to normal, back to normal business for our next episode. Episode 21 will be on WCW. Remind me, Adam. Something cowboy related. Spring Stampede.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we'll get back to. Amazing that Paul White's on both those shows.
That's really weird.
But this time he'll be climbing to try and get a baseball bat on a
Thanks for reminding me.
on a rope. Not bad. We'd rather see him fighting QT Marshall in a rematch.
Yeah.
But until then, I'm going to go and watch the end of All Out again. I really,
Awesome.
I've watched that twice now, the end, and I still got goosebumps when Bryan Danielson came out.
Nice.
Until episode 21, we've been the Middle-Aged Outlaws, and we'll see you for episode 21. Cheers, Adam.
Thank you.